I'm Nick Schifrin, and the producer Zach Fannin is behind the camera, and welcome to Moscow. We have been reporting for the last 7 or 8 weeks for PBS NewsHour for a series on Russia. We're going to examine the bilateral relationship. In the U.S., there is a lot of discussion about Russia. Some would say a bit of chaos about Russia. From here, there is great disappointment.
We really want to love you and be friends with you. We are waiting for you to finally meet us halfway.
President Trump hasn't been able to follow through on his promises to improve the bilateral relationship. There is also a little bit of delight in seeing Washington suffer such turbulence.
We have seen what we needed to see vulnerability of American society.
We're also going to examine what we call the new Russian identity created over the last couple decades. There's a deep conservatism that President Putin has used in the last few years since he was last elected that is deeply intertwined with policies of the Russian Orthodox Church.
The state and my faith are united. They can't be separated. The values of the church and the state coincide.
There is a new attempt to try and bring back Russian traditions from before the Soviet Union, perhaps most notably the Cossacks. And all of this combines into a desire to have pride in the past and yet again a strong foreign policy, a muscular foreign policy that we're now seeing in both Ukraine and Syria. We're going to examine the news media here, both the news media that speaks to Russians in Russian, which really does try and shape people's reality.
Putin is universally accepted as one of the most qualified heads of state on the planet, if not the most qualified.
And the media, or as some would call it, the propaganda that exists from Russia to influence the West.
The article basically accuses the U.S. of manufacturing this Ebola outbreak.
We're going to travel to Dagestan on Russia's southern border to examine why so many people seem to be going to Syria to fight for Al-Qaeda and ISIS as part of the wars there.
It is no accident that the youth are tempted to go to Syria, because today there is a revival of Islam.
We're also going to look at the fate of the Kremlin's enemies. The opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, seems to be too strong, too defiant, too public to be targeted, and he has used corruption as the main tool in his weapon to try and fight President Putin. Navalny wants to run for president next year.
We do not owe the government anything. It is the government who owes us. They build an authoritarian regime that doesn't give anything back.
But there are also enemies who have been targeted much more fiercely and much more violently. Boris Nemtsov was killed on the bridge right next to the Kremlin, and some of his protégés and people who have worked with him have also been targeted.
And I remember that distinct feeling that this is it. This is the end. Now I'm going to die.
There's a lot of coverage in the United States right now, and what we're hoping to do with this series is really try and create some understanding about how Russia thinks and feels, and try and create a little more nuanced, complex picture of the relationship between Russia and the United States.